The stars had always been silent. For thousands of years, humans looked up at the night sky and wondered if they were alone. In the year 2187, they finally got their answer. They were not alone. And something was coming. Admiral Park Taiho stood in the command center of Earth's Defense Headquarters. He was a tall man with gray hair and calm eyes. He had fought in 3 wars and won them all. But nothing had prepared him for what he saw on the screen in front of him. 9,500 ships. The number seemed impossible. Earth's entire fleet was only 340 vessels. The alien armada was so large that it blocked out the stars behind it. "How long until they reach Earth?" Park asked. His voice was steady. It was always steady. 14 days, sir," answered Lieutenant Baekji-ho, a young officer with sharp eyes and quick hands. He was only 26 years old, but he was one of the best tactical minds in the fleet. Park nodded slowly. 14 days to prepare for the end of the world, or 14 days to find a way to survive? Far across the galaxy, Grand Overseer Velthus addressed the Hegemony Council. The hegemony of 12 worlds had conquered hundreds of planets over 10,000 years. They had never lost a war. They had never even come close to losing. "The humans are primitive," Velthus announced. His 4 eyes gleamed with confidence. "They've only recently discovered space travel. Their weapons are crude. Their ships are slow. This conquest will take less than 1 day." The council members made sounds of agreement. This was simply another world to add to their empire. Nothing special. Nothing dangerous. They were wrong. Back on Earth, Dr. Kim Yuna rushed into Admiral Park's office. She was a small woman with messy hair and brilliant eyes. She had not slept in 3 days, but she carried something important. "I have something," she said, placing a tablet on his desk. "Project Hammer. We finished it." Park looked at the data on the screen. His eyes widened slightly. "This actually works?" "We tested it twice. It works." Yuna allowed herself a small smile. Gravity manipulation warheads. 1 warhead can crush a ship into the size of a baseball, and we have 200 of them. For the first time in days, Park felt something like hope. It was small, but it was there. The news of the alien fleet spread across Earth like fire. People panicked. Governments argued. Some people prayed. Others ran to bunkers that would never protect them. But something else happened too. Something the aliens would never understand. Humans started volunteering. Soldiers who had retired came back. Engineers worked without sleep. Factory workers built weapons day and night. Students joined the military. Old enemies forgot their hatred and stood together. Earth had never been truly united before. But now, facing death from the stars, humanity became one. Lieutenant Baekji-ho stood before Admiral Park with a request. "Let me take a squadron out," he said. "Reconnaissance. We need to know what we are facing." Park studied the young man. Sending ships toward that massive fleet was dangerous, possibly suicidal. But Jiho was right. They needed information. "Take 6 ships," Park said. "Fast ones. Do not engage. Just watch and return." Jiho saluted and left. 6 hours later, his squadron slipped past Jupiter. Moving silent and dark toward the approaching enemy, what Jiho saw changed everything. The alien ships were huge, covered in weapons and armor. But they moved carelessly. They flew in loose formations. Their shields were down. Their weapons were not charged. They were not preparing for battle. They were preparing for a parade. Geo recorded everything. He watched alien officers laughing and celebrating on their bridges. He saw supply ships filled with chains and cages meant for human prisoners. He found documents planning which Earth cities would become slave camps. "They think we are already beaten," Jiho realized. "They think this is already over." He returned to Earth with his recordings. When Admiral Park saw them, his calm expression finally changed. His jaw tightened. His eyes grew hard. "They are not even treating this as a war," Park said quietly. "They think they are collecting livestock." "Yes, sir," Giho replied. "They have no idea what is waiting for them." Park stood and walked to the window. Outside, he could see ships being loaded with weapons. He could see soldiers training. He could see the moon, where even now, engineers were installing massive defense cannons.
Activate everything.
Park ordered. The asteroid belt platforms, the Mars defense grid, the solar collectors, everything we have been hiding, everything we have been building. For years, Earth had secretly prepared for this day, not because they knew aliens existed, but because humans always prepared for war. It was in their nature. They could not help it now that preparation would save them. The alien fleet entered the solar system 3 days later. They broadcast a message to Earth. The message was simple: surrender immediately. Give up all weapons. Become slaves of the hegemony. Resistance meant death. Earth did not respond. The aliens waited. They broadcast again. Still nothing. Velthus was annoyed but not worried. They are paralyzed with fear, he told his officers. They cannot even speak. Begin the advance. 2,000 ships moved forward as the vanguard. They flew past Neptune, past Uranus, past Saturn. They entered the asteroid belt with confidence. Already imagining the glory of conquest, they never saw the mines. Admiral. Park watched from Earth as thousands of hidden explosive devices activated across the asteroid belt. Mining drones that had been quietly reprogrammed. Rocks filled with nuclear charges. Satellites disguised as debris. The first explosion destroyed an alien cruiser instantly. Then another. Then 100 more. Fire bloomed across the belt like a garden of death. 400 alien ships died in 90 seconds. Velthus stared at his screen in shock. This was impossible. Primitives could not do this. Primitives did not fight back. But he had made a terrible mistake. He had studied human technology. He had studied human history. But he had not studied humans. He did not know that humans had spent their entire existence fighting against nature, against each other, against anything that threatened them. Fighting was not something humans did. It was something humans were. Admiral Park addressed his fleet one final time before the real battle began. His face appeared on every screen, every ship, every station. "We came here expecting slaves," he said. "They expected us to kneel. They expected us to beg." His voice hardened. "They were wrong. We are humanity. We do not kneel. We do not beg. We do not surrender. And today, we will teach them what that means." Across the solar system, human weapons powered up. Ships moved into position. Soldiers checked their guns one last time. The largest battle in human history was about to begin, and humanity was ready. The asteroid belt burned. 400 alien ships had been destroyed in less than 2 minutes. Debris floated through space like snow made of metal and fire. Grand Overseer Velthus stood frozen on his command ship. His 4 eyes blinked rapidly. Around him, officers shouted and scrambled at their stations. Alarms screamed warnings that nobody knew how to answer. "This is impossible," Velthus whispered. His voice shook. "Primitives cannot do this." But the evidence was floating in front of him. 400 ships. Gone. One of his commanders approached nervously. "Overseer, what are your orders?" Velthus forced himself to think. This was a trick. It had to be. The humans had used hidden bombs. Clever, but it would not save them. They could not have many more surprises like this. "Continue the advance," Velthus ordered. "All ships raise shields and charge weapons. These primitives want to fight. We will show them what fighting really means." Remaining 1,600 ships of the vanguard pushed forward. This time they were ready for traps. They scanned every rock. They destroyed anything suspicious, but they were not ready for Captain Cho. Minho commanded the stealth destroyer Dokdo. His ship was small and fast, painted in special material that absorbed scanner signals. He had been hiding behind a large asteroid, watching the alien fleet approach. They raised their shields, his sensor officer reported. "They are being more careful now." Good, careful enemies are slow enemies. And slow enemies die tired. He activated his communication system. "All stealth units, This is Dokdo. Begin attack pattern 7. Make them bleed. 20 small human ships emerged from hiding spots across the belt. They did not attack the large warships. Instead, they targeted supply vessels, fuel tankers, communication relays. Medical ships, the aliens expected a direct fight. They did not expect humans to hunt their weak. Points like wolves chasing wounded deer, 12 supply ships exploded before the aliens could react. Suddenly, the Vanguard had a problem. They were far from home with limited supplies. They could not stay in the belt forever. Push through, Valthus commanded from behind. Ignore the small ships. Reach Earth, and the war is over. The Vanguard obeyed. They accelerated toward Mars, leaving the asteroid belt behind. They thought they were escaping the danger. They were wrong. On Mars, Sergeant Han Soman waited. She was a ground forces specialist, 32 years old, with scars on her hands from a dozen battles. The Mars colony had 3 million civilians and only 10,000 soldiers. Against the alien invasion force, those numbers meant nothing. But Salman had something better than numbers. She had preparation. For weeks, her soldiers had been digging, building, hiding. The Mars colony, Lou. Ked normal from space, but underneath the red dirt, an entire network of tunnels and bunkers waited. The first alien landing ships touched down near the colony's main dome. 1,000 alien soldiers marched out, expecting terrified humans waving white flags. Instead, they found empty streets and silence. The alien commander was confused. Where were the humans? Had they already fled underground? He ordered his troops to advance toward the colony center. They walked into a trap. The ground exploded beneath them. Walls that looked solid revealed hidden gun positions. Buildings collapsed on alien squads. Humans appeared from nowhere, fired, and vanished again. The 1,000 alien soldiers became 900. Then 800. Then 600. Fall back. The alien commander screamed. Fall back to the ships. But Soman was not finished. She had saved her best surprise for the retreat. As the aliens ran toward their landing ships, the ships themselves exploded. Soman's teams had placed charges on them hours ago, crawling through underground tunnels to reach them. The surviving aliens had nowhere to go. They surrendered within the hour. Salman looked at the alien prisoners being led away. They seemed confused, frightened, broken. They had conquered 100 worlds. They had never seen anything like humans. Tell your friends up there, Salman said to one prisoner, that this was just the welcome party. Back in space, the Vanguard fleet reached Earth orbit. But the human defense was ready for them. Engineer Yoon Hin-woo sat at his station aboard the flagship Magangwa. His job was weapons systems. He had spent 10 years making human weapons more powerful, faster, and deadlier. Now he would see if his work was good enough. Enemy fleet entering range, the tactical officer announced. 1,600 ships. Admiral Park stood at the center of the bridge. His face showed no fear. All orbital platforms, fire at will. Earth's orbital defense grid activated. It was humanity's greatest secret weapon. Hundreds of platforms hidden among satellites and space stations. Each one carried particle lances powered by solar collectors that had been gathering energy for years. The lances fired. Beams of pure energy cut through. Alien shields, like knives through paper. Ships broke apart. Reactors exploded. Hundreds of alien vessels died in the first minute. The aliens fired back. Human platforms exploded. Defense stations went silent. But for every human platform destroyed, 10 alien ships fell. Engineer Hyun-woo watched his screens carefully. The aliens were adapting, trying to find patterns in the human attack. They were learning, Admiral Hyun-woo said. They are adjusting their shield frequencies. Our particle lances will lose effectiveness in approximately 4 minutes, Park nodded. Then we change weapons. Prepare the gravity warheads. Dr. Kim Yuna had given them 200 warheads. Each one contained technology that should not have existed for another century. Technology born from desperation and genius. Fire Park commanded. The warheads launched. They looked small, harmless. The aliens ignored them, focusing on the bigger threats. That was their last mistake. The first warhead reached an alien capital ship. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the ship began to collapse inward. Metal screamed as it compressed. The massive vessel, a kilometer long, folded into itself like paper being crushed by an invisible hand. In 3 seconds, it was gone. In its place floated a ball of matter no bigger than a human fist. 3 more capital ships suffered the same fate. The alien fleet went insane with fear. What is that weapon? Commanders screamed over their communications. What are they using? Engineer Hyunwoo smiled at his station. He had helped design those warheads. Years of work. Thousands of failed experiments. And now, watching alien ships collapse into nothing, he knew it was worth it. The battle raged for 40 minutes. When it ended, the Vanguard fleet was broken. 1,600 ships had become 800. Half of them were damaged. All of them were terrified. Veilthus watched from the main fleet, still waiting at the edge of the solar system. His hands trembled. This was not possible. This was not happening, Overseer, one of his officers said quietly. The Vanguard is requesting retreat orders. Retreat. The word was poison. No hegemony fleet had ever retreated. Not in 10,000 years. But Veilthus looked at the numbers. 800 ships remaining from 1,600, and the main human fleet had not even engaged yet. The humans had done this with fixed platforms and a handful of destroyers. What would happen when their full fleet attacked? For the first time in his life, Veilthus felt something he did not recognize. It took him a moment to understand what it was. Fear. He was afraid of humans. Order the Vanguard to hold position, he commanded, his voice barely steady. The main fleet will advance. All 9,000 ships. We end this now. The largest battle in galactic history was about to begin. 9,000 alien warships against Earth's 340 defenders. The odds were impossible. The outcome seemed certain, but the aliens had already learned one terrible lesson. Humans did not care about odds. Humans did not accept certain outcomes. Humans just kept fighting, and they were very, very good at it. 9,000 alien warships filled the space between Mars and Earth. They stretched across the darkness like a wall of metal and death. Their weapons glowed. Their engines roared. They came for conquest. Against them stood 340 human vessels. They were smaller. They were fewer. By every logical measure, they should have been dust within minutes. Admiral Park Tai-ho stood on the bridge of the Magangwa. Around him, his crew worked with calm focus. No panic, no despair. Just soldiers doing their jobs. All ships report ready, Lieutenant Baek Ji-ho announced. The fleet awaits your orders, Admiral. Park looked at the enemy formation on his screen. 9,000 ships. It was a number designed to terrify. A number meant to crush hope before the battle even began. But Park was not afraid. He had studied the alien tactics. He had watched how they fought. They relied on numbers and overwhelming force. They had never faced an enemy who refused to break. All ships, Park said calmly. Begin attack formation Delta. We hit their command vessels first. Cut off the head, and the body will stumble. The human fleet moved forward. 340 ships against 9,000. It should have been suicide. It was not. Pilot Officer Kang Naeon led the first attack squadron. She was 28 years old, the best pilot in the fleet, and completely without fear. Her fighter was small and fast, designed to slip through gaps in enemy formations. Squadron 7, follow my lead, she commanded. We are going for the flagship. Her squadron of 12 fighters dove into the alien formation. Enemy fire filled the space around them. Ships exploded on all sides, but Naeon flew like she was dancing, dodging beams and missiles with movements that seemed impossible. She found the alien flagship, a massive vessel covered in golden decorations and ceremonial banners. It was beautiful. It was proud. It had never been touched in 100 battles. Naeon put 3 missiles into its engine section. The explosion tore through the flagship's rear. Power failed. The ship began to drift. On its bridge, Admiral Velcor, the Vanguard commander, died instantly. The Vanguard fleet suddenly had no leader. Ships that had been fighting in formation began to scatter. Captains who had always followed orders suddenly had to think for themselves. Most of them did not know how. "The enemy formation is breaking," Jiho reported. "Multiple ships are retreating without orders. Others are firing on each other by accident." Park allowed himself a small nod. "Good. Concentrate fire on their heavy cruisers. Keep them confused." The battle raged across thousands of kilometers. Human ships darted between larger alien vessels, striking and retreating before the enemy could respond. Every human captain knew they could not win a straight fight, so they did not fight straight. They fought like humans. Commander Shin Jae-won captained the battleship Baekdu. He was 51 years old, a veteran of the Mars rebellions and a father of two. His ship was one of the oldest in the fleet, but its crew was among the best. For 3 hours, the BIDDO held a critical position between two alien assault groups. They prevented the groups from joining together, fighting off attacks from both sides. But the damage built up. Systems failed. Fires burned through lower decks. Half the crew was dead or wounded. "Captain," his first officer said, "weapons are offline. We have maybe 10 minutes before the reactor fails." Jae-won looked at his screen. An alien carrier was directly ahead. If that carrier joined the main battle, it would turn the tide against Earth. He made his decision instantly. "All hands abandon ship," he ordered. "Get to the escape pods." Now, his crew hesitated. They knew what he was planning. "That is an order," Jae-won said firmly. "Go. I will finish this." The escape pods launched. Jae-won stayed at the helm, alone. He aimed the Baekdu directly at the alien carrier. The engines screamed as he pushed them past their limits. Alarms filled the bridge with sound. The ship shook violently. The aliens tried to move their carrier. Too slow, too late. The Baekdu struck the carrier at full speed. The collision created an explosion visible from Earth's surface. Both ships vanished in a ball of fire. Jae-won's last transmission reached the fleet moments before impact. His voice was calm, almost peaceful. "Tell my daughter I did not run." Admiral Park heard the message. His jaw tightened. He took a breath. Then he returned to the battle. There would be time to mourn later. Now there was only the fight. Dr. Kim Yuna watched the battle from Earth's surface. She had one weapon left, the most dangerous weapon humanity had ever built. She had hoped she would not need to use it. She needed to use it. "Admiral," she said through the communication system, "I am ready to fire the solar lance." Park understood immediately. The solar lance was not really a weapon. It was a system that could focus the sun's energy into a directed burst, like using a magnifying glass to focus sunlight. Except this magnifying glass was the size of a city, and the target was an alien fleet. "Do it," Park ordered. Yuna activated the system. Satellites around Mercury shifted position. Giant mirrors turned toward the sun. Energy collectors that had been gathering power for decades released. Everything at once. A beam of focused solar energy crossed the distance between the sun and Earth in 8 minutes. It was invisible until it struck. 800 alien ships were in its path. The beam hit them like the anger of a star. Shields meant nothing. Armor meant nothing. Ships did not explode. They simply ceased to exist. Metal turned to vapor. Bodies became atoms. 800 vessels vanished in a single heartbeat. The alien fleet went silent. Every ship, every crew, every commander. They all stopped and stared at the empty space where 800 of their companions had been. Grand. Overseer Veilthus felt his heart stop. He had watched impossible things today, but this was beyond impossible. This was a nightmare. "What are they?" he whispered. "What kind of creatures are these humans?" His remaining commanders had no answer. They were too busy calculating how quickly they could run. "Overseer," one commander said, We have lost over 6,000 ships. Our fleet is scattered. Morale is collapsing. We must retreat. Retreat. The word again. The word that meant defeat. But Valthus looked at his screens. He saw the numbers. He saw the destruction. He saw human ships still fighting, still hunting, still killing. "Order the retreat," he said. The words tasted like poison. "All ships fall back to the edge of the system. We will regroup," and he stopped. Regroup and what? Attack again? With what ships? What crews? Who would volunteer to fight these monsters? The alien fleet began to run. Ships that had come to conquer now fled in terror. They scattered in all directions, desperate to escape the human hunters. Admiral Park watched them flee. His fleet had lost 180 ships, more than half their force, thousands of sailors dead. But the enemy had lost over 8,000 vessels. The battle was won. But Park was not finished. Admiral Lieutenant Jiho said, "The enemy is retreating. Do we let them go?" Park considered the question. The smart military move was to let them run, consolidate, rebuild, prepare for the next attack. But Park thought about Commander J1, about the crews who died fighting, about the civilians on Mars who had lived in fear, about a galaxy full of aliens who believed humans were easy prey. If he let these ships escape, they would return. Maybe not soon, maybe not in his lifetime. But someday they would come back, and they would bring more ships, more weapons, more chains. No. This ended now. All ships capable of pursuit, Park ordered, follow them. We let 17 ships survive to deliver a message. The rest do not go home. The hunt began, and for the first time in 10,000 years, the hegemony learned what it felt like to be prey. The alien fleet ran like frightened animals, ships scattered in every direction. Desperate to escape the death that had found them near Earth, thousands of vessels fled toward the outer solar system, toward the darkness between stars, toward anywhere that was not here, but the humans followed. Lieutenant Beek Ji-ho, now promoted to commander, led the fastest pursuit squadron. His ships were built for speed, not heavy combat. They could catch anything that tried to run, there Ji-ho said, pointing at his screen. 12 destroyers trying to reach the Neptune relay station. If they get there, they can send a message to the hegemony. His pilot nodded and adjusted course. The pursuit squadron accelerated. The alien destroyers saw them coming. They pushed their engines harder, trying to squeeze out more speed. But human ships were faster. Human ships were always faster. Humans built everything as if they expected to need to run or chase at any moment. It was one of many things the aliens had not. Understood? Ji-ho caught the destroyers near Neptune's largest moon. The aliens turned to fight, realizing they could not escape. It was a brave decision. It was also their last. The battle lasted for minutes. When it ended, 11 alien destroyers floated dead in space. One had surrendered. Its crew came out with their arms raised, looking at the humans with pure terror in their eyes. "Take them prisoner," Ji-ho ordered. "We have questions for them." Across the solar system, similar scenes played out. Human squadrons hunted alien ships through asteroid fields, around gas giants, and into the cold darkness beyond Pluto. Some aliens fought, some surrendered. Some tried to hide. None escaped. Captain Cho Min-ho led his stealth destroyers on a special mission. His target was not warships. His target was the enemy supply fleet. Without fuel and food, they cannot run far. Min-ho explained to his crew. "We cut their supplies. We leave them stranded. Then we collect them at our leisure." His ships moved like ghosts through space. Their special coating made them invisible to alien sensors. They appeared without warning, struck fast, vanished before the enemy could respond. In 3 days, Min-ho's squadron destroyed 47 supply ships. The alien fleet suddenly faced a terrible reality. They were running out of fuel, running out of food, running out of hope. Grand Overseer Valthus commanded the retreat from his personal vessel. Once, this ship had been the pride of the hegemony fleet. Now it limped through space, with half its systems damaged and most of its crew dead. Around him, only a few hundred ships remained from the 9,000 that had come to conquer Earth, and the number dropped every hour as human hunters found and destroyed more stragglers. Overseer, his communications officer said, I am receiving transmissions from the other survivors. They want to know what to do. Velthus had no answer. His entire life, he had followed the simple rule of the hegemony. Strength conquers all. Bring enough ships, and victory was certain. It had always worked before. It had not worked against humans. Tell them to keep running, Velthus said weakly. Tell them to survive. The communications officer hesitated. Overseer, many ships have no fuel to run. They are requesting permission to surrender. Surrender. In 10,000 years of hegemony conquest, no fleet had ever surrendered. The very idea was shameful beyond words. But what choice did they have? Fight and die. The humans would kill them anyway. At least surrender offered a chance to live. Tell them ... Velthus closed his 4 eyes. Tell them to do what they must. Specialist Uday monitored alien communications from her station on the Magangwa. She was young, only 24, but she had a gift for languages. She had learned to understand the alien transmissions within days. Now she listened to their fleet fall apart. They're arguing, she reported to Admiral Park. Some captains want to surrender. Others want to fight to the death. One captain is suggesting they all turn around and attack Earth together for one final charge. Park listened carefully. What is Velthus saying? Da frowned at her screen. He is crying, Admiral. He keeps saying the same thing over and over. He is saying, what are they? What are these humans? Park felt no satisfaction at the enemy's despair. He felt only tiredness. This battle should never have happened. These deaths were not necessary. If the aliens had simply left humanity alone, none of this would have occurred. But they had not left humanity alone. They had come with chains and cages, expecting to enslave an entire species, and now they faced the consequences. Continued the pursuit, Park ordered. Find Vel Thomas. I want to speak with him personally. It took 5 more days to corner Velthus. His ship was finally trapped near the edge of the solar system, surrounded by human vessels with nowhere to go. Commander Jiho led the capture team. He boarded the alien ship with 20 soldiers, expecting a fight. Instead, he found only exhausted aliens sitting in corridors. Too broken to resist, they found Velthus on the bridge, still sitting in his command chair. He looked up as Jiho entered. His 4 eyes were dull. His body seemed smaller than in the recordings. So, Velthus said quietly, you have come to kill me. Jiho shook his head. No, Admiral Park wants to speak with you, and you are going to deliver a message. Velthus made a sound that might have been a laugh. A message? To whom? The hegemony. They will not believe what happened here. I was there, and I barely believe it myself. They will believe it, Jiho said, because you will show them. Admiral Park had a plan. A message broadcast across space could be dismissed as human lies, but survivors telling their stories in person, showing their wounds, describing their terror, that could not be dismissed. Park chose 17 ships to survive. Not randomly. He chose ships whose crews had seen the worst of the battle. Ships whose captains had watched friends die. Ships full of aliens who would never forget what they had witnessed. He gathered these ships together and spoke to their crews through their communication systems. His face appeared on their screens, and they flinched at the sight of him. I am Admiral Park Tai-ho of Earth's United Defense Fleet, he said. You came to my world to conquer and enslave. You failed. You will now return to your masters and deliver a message. He paused, letting his words sink in. The message is this. Humanity did not ask for war. We were content with our corner of the galaxy. We did not threaten you. We did not attack you. You came to us with weapons and chains, and you learned the cost of that decision. Park's voice hardened. I am sending you home so you can warn others. If the hegemony sends another fleet, none of it will return. If any species tries to conquer or enslave humanity, they will face the same fate. We do not seek enemies. but we do not fear them either. He leaned closer to the camera. Understand this clearly. We did not win because we are stronger. We are not stronger. We won because we refused to lose. We won because humans do not surrender. We won because when you threatened our home, every human, everywhere, stood together and fought as one. Tell your hegemony. Tell your council. Tell every species in the galaxy. Earth is not a prize to be conquered. Earth is not a world of slaves. Earth is our home, and we will burn the stars themselves before we let anyone take it from us. Park ended the transmission. The 17 ships were released. They limped away toward hegemony space, carrying their message of terror and warning. Jiho watched them go. Do you think they will listen? He asked. Park stood beside him, watching the ships disappear into the darkness. Some will, some will not. Those who do not listen will learn the hard way, as this fleet did. And if they send more ships, bigger fleets? Park turned away from the window. His face was tired but determined. Then we will fight again, as many times as necessary, until they understand that humanity is not prey. The hunt was over. The message was sent. But Admiral Park knew this was not the end. It was only the beginning. Somewhere out there, an entire galaxy was about to learn that humans existed. And humans did not kneel. The 17 ships arrived at the hegemony homeworld looking like ghosts. Their hulls were scorched. Their engines barely functioned. Some had holes so large that emergency shields were the only thing keeping the crew alive. People gathered to watch them land. The hegemony had sent 9,500 of its finest warships to conquer a primitive world. Everyone expected triumph. Celebrations had been planned. Slaves had been promised. Instead, 17 broken ships returned. And everything changed. Grand Overseer Valthus was dragged before the Galactic Council. The chamber was massive, filled with representatives from 100 species. All of them stared at the broken alien who had once commanded the greatest fleet in history. Council Speaker Threnvel sat at the highest seat. He was old, wise, and had guided the council for 300 years. He had never seen anything like this, explained Threnvel commanded. How did this happen? Valthus stood on shaking legs. His 4 eyes stared at the floor. When he spoke, his voice cracked. We underestimated them, he said. We thought humans were primitives. We thought they would surrender. We thought, he stopped, swallowed, continued. Thought they would behave like every other species we have conquered, and they did not. Threnvel asked. Valthus looked up. Something burned in his eyes. Something that might have been madness. They did not surrender. They did not retreat. They did not beg. They fought. From the first moment to the last, they fought. They used weapons we have never seen. They attacked in ways we could not predict. They sacrificed themselves without hesitation to destroy our ships. His voice rose. They are not primitives. They are predators. Every single one of them. They spent their entire evolution fighting. Fighting their world. Fighting each other. Fighting everything. War is not something humans do. War is what humans are. They were born for it. Made for it. Valthus collapsed to his knees. I sent 9,500 ships against them. I lost 9,483. The humans lost less than 200. Those are not odds. That is not a battle. That is slaughter. The council chamber fell completely silent. The recording Valthus brought was played for the council. They watched the battle unfold. They saw the asteroid belt traps. They saw the gravity warheads crushing ships. They saw the solar lance erasing 800 vessels in an instant. They saw human pilots flying directly into enemy ships, sacrificing themselves to destroy larger targets. When the recording ended, several council members were physically shaking. One had to be helped out of the chamber. Others simply stared at nothing, trying to understand what they had witnessed. This cannot be true, one representative said. It must be human lies. Propaganda designed to frighten us. Valthus laughed bitterly. I wish it were lies. I saw it with my own eyes. I watched my fleet die. I felt their terror in every transmission. That recording is not propaganda. It is the truth. And the truth is that humanity is the most dangerous species in the galaxy. The news spread across 1,000 worlds within days. The greatest military defeat in galactic history. The conquest that became a disaster. The primitives, who were not primitive at all, on every planet, every station, every colony, people talked about humans. Some were afraid. Some were impressed. Some were inspired. On worlds conquered by the hegemony, slaves whispered to each other at night, if humans could defeat the masters, perhaps freedom was possible. Perhaps resistance was not hopeless. Rebellion sparked across 5 systems within a month. The hegemony sent forces to crush them. But the forces were smaller now, weaker. The soldiers were afraid. They had seen what happened to those who believed themselves invincible. The hegemony of 12 worlds began to crumble. Species that had followed the hegemony for thousands of years suddenly had questions. Why should they obey masters who could not even conquer one small world? Why should they fear an empire that ran from battle? Alliances broke. Treaties dissolved. The old order that had ruled the galaxy for 10,000 years started to fall apart. All because of one species on one world who refused to kneel. On Earth, the celebration lasted for days. But Admiral Park Tai-ho did not celebrate. He worked. There was too much to do. The war had shown humanity what the galaxy truly was. Not a place of peaceful exploration and scientific wonder. It was a jungle. A place where the strong devoured the weak. Where only power earned respect, humanity needed to be stronger. We are building a new fleet, Park announced to Earth's leaders. 500 ships to start, then 1,000, then more. We will never be caught weak again. Dr. Kim Yuna led the effort to understand captured alien technology. Her teams worked day and night, taking apart enemy ships, studying their engines, learning their secrets. Within 3 months, they cracked the alien faster-than-light drive. Humanity was no longer trapped in one star system. The galaxy was open to them. Where do we go first? One scientist asked, why UNA thought about it carefully. Everywhere, she finally said. We go everywhere. We explore, we learn, we prepare. Because the next threat might not give us 14 days warning. The next threat might be worse than the hegemony. The galaxy had noticed humanity. Now, humanity had to be ready for whatever came next. Council Speaker Threnvel made a decision that shocked everyone. He contacted Earth directly, requesting diplomatic talks. Many thought he was mad. Others thought he was wise. A few understood the truth. He was simply practical. Humanity could not be conquered. Fighting them was suicide. Therefore, they had to be negotiated with. Admiral Park agreed to speak with him. The conversation was brief and careful. 2 leaders feeling out an unknown situation. What do humans want? Threnvel asked. It was the question everyone in the galaxy was asking. Park considered his answer carefully. We want to be left alone. We did not ask for your attention. We did not want this war. We were happy exploring our small corner of the galaxy. If being left alone is not possible. Park's expression hardened slightly. Then we want respect. Not friendship. Not alliance. Respect. Treat us as equals, and we will respond in kind. Treat us as prey, and you have seen what happens. Threnvel understood. It was a reasonable position. Almost surprisingly reasonable, given what humanity had just demonstrated they could do. There may be those who do not listen, Threnvel warned. The galaxy is large. There are many species. Some are foolish. Some are aggressive. Some will test your strength. Park nodded. We expect that, and we will respond appropriately. We do not seek war, but we do not run from it either. The conversation ended. It was not friendship. It was not alliance. It was simply understanding. And for now, understanding was enough. A monument was built on the moon. It stood near the largest of humanity's shipyards, where new vessels were being constructed every day. The monument was simple, a tall pillar of white stone with names carved into its surface. Every human who died in the battle was listed: soldiers, sailors, pilots, engineers, civilians caught in attacks. Every name. Every sacrifice. Commander Beek Jiho, now an admiral himself, visited the monument often. He would stand before it in silence, reading names he recognized and names he did not. He found Commander Shin Jae-won's name near the top of the pillar. The man who had rammed his ship into an alien carrier, the man who told them to tell his daughter he did not run. Jiho had met the daughter. She was 17 years old, quiet and serious, with her father's eyes. She had listened to Jiho explain how her father died. She had not cried. She had simply nodded and said, "I know." He was always brave. She had enlisted in the fleet the next day at the base of the monument. An inscription was carved in letters large enough to read from space. They came to conquer. They learned to fear. Jiho read those words every time he visited. They were true. But they were not complete. The full truth was more complicated. Humans had one not because they were monsters, not because they loved war. They had one because they loved their home. They loved their families. They loved their freedom, and they would fight anything that threatened those things in a distant corner of the galaxy. A young alien listened to her teacher tell the story of Earth. The story had already become legend, a tale told to children to explain why the universe had changed. The humans were small, the teacher said. Their world was small. Their fleet was small. Everything about them seemed weak. But they were not weak. They were simply waiting. And when the hegemony came to destroy them, they showed the galaxy what humanity truly was. The young alien raised her hand. What were they? The teacher was quiet for a moment. They were survivors. They came from a hard world that tried to kill them every day. They fought storms and predators and disease. They fought each other. They fought everything. And they survived it all. By the time they reached the stars, nothing could break them. Nothing could make them surrender. The hegemony did not understand this. And so the hegemony fell. The young alien thought about this. Are humans good or bad? Another pause. I do not know. Perhaps they are neither. Perhaps they are simply human. And that is enough to make the galaxy tremble. Light years away, on a world called Earth, humans went about their lives. They built ships and studied stars. They raised families and dreamed of the future. They remembered those who had died and honored their sacrifice. And somewhere deep in their hearts, they carried a simple truth. A truth that had saved them. A truth that would protect them forever. Humanity does not kneel. Humanity does not surrender. Humanity fights, and humanity wins. The galaxy had learned this lesson in fire and blood. It was a lesson they would never forget. The story of Earth had just begun, and the universe would never be the same.